Today we're going to be taking a closer look at the career of Nicolas Cage. We're going to be ranking every single one of his movies, from his very worst to his best. We're going to be ranking every movie, all 67 of them to ever come out. This does not include brief performances like appearances of Fast Times at Ridgemont High. These are solely his major roles. So like I said, 67 of his movies. We'll be ranking them here on Skynet Gen Network on this edition of Movie Spotlight. As we take a closer look at Nicolas Cage's career, it is fun to point out that a lot of people have considered that his career has been going downhill ever since the 90s, and he starred in some really questionable movies, and really there's been this question, well, does he accept every script that is just handed to him, or is he just doesn't care about making any movies? That's all about the money. And I don't know if it's really necessarily all the money, because he does live a pretty simple life. So it's really about roles that challenge him as an actor, and he's really constantly searching for new roles. I mean, you can't really label him as one type of actor like Tom Cruise, where you can say he does sci-fi and action movies. Nicolas Cage kind of does everything, horror, comedy, combination of both. So he kind of does everything, fantasy, whatever. He's done it, and we will see these various genres on this list, and we'll see which movies have hurt him, which movies have propelled him to even Oscar nominations and other sorts of awards that he necessarily may not have won. I mean, it's known that he's won an Oscar for Leaving Las Vegas, but there's other movies that had a potential run for him to earn another Oscar or a Golden Globe or any of those other major awards. So let's go ahead and get started on counting down every single Nicolas Cage movie from number 67 all the way down to number 1. So why don't we kick off with number 67, which is Left Behind. It might not necessarily be the worst movie I've ever seen, but it's certainly his worst movie. Though some people will argue some of these other movies might be worse, this movie was the worst. Now, when you think about the director of this movie, it was directed by Vic Armstrong, who is known to have worked on the Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. He's also worked on Mission Impossible 3, I Am Legend. So it's very strange that someone talented as himself would, as a director, would really make such a terrible movie. And we also have, obviously Nicolas Cage is in this movie. Aaliyah Thompson is in this movie as well, from Back to the Future. While everyone knows her from that movie, she starred in a bunch of other movies. And they are well-experienced actors, but in this movie, it's like they haven't had any acting training at all. It's just terrible. I mean, the first half hour, I think, it just feels like such a soap opera, and all the stunt work in this movie is just terrible. You would think that this movie, everyone shooting this movie had no experience whatsoever, and it's just clearly not the case. Moving on to number 66 on this countdown is a movie called Deadfall, which came out in 1993. Now, I was considering putting that movie ahead of Left Behind because both movies are terrible. Terrible, beyond terrible. And now it's no surprise that this movie was terrible because it was directed by his brother. I watched this movie like twice, and to this day, I have no idea what this movie is about. This movie has such a terrible story that it is just, first of all, it's not even a memorable story. Second of all, it's just, you don't even know what's happening. It's just, the story, what story? I feel like there is no story. Pretty much this movie, if I said Left Behind was the worst movie, is just a movie you shouldn't check out at all. I don't care if you have spare time. Don't see this movie. It's just a waste of time. Deadfall isn't any better. It's terrible. The acting isn't as bad. The story is worse, I feel like, but the acting isn't as bad, and that's the only thing that's keeping it going. And the fact that we have some famous stars in this also keep it going. People like Peter Fonda, Charlie Sheen, and Nicolas Cage starring in this movie. And the only scene that you need to see is Nicolas Cage losing his shit, as people like to call it, in that one scene where he's just yelling for like 2 minutes, and that's pretty much the only scene you need to watch, because everything else is just trash.
Someone's trying to kill me, man!
Who would try to kill you, Eddie?
The fucking hangers! I didn't know you smoke cigars, babe, particularly Louis brand.
Eddie, it's really not what you think.
Shut up! Shut the fuck up, man! Oh, you fucking low, man! What am I, a fucking retard, man? Am I a fucking retard, huh? I know what this is. Lou trying to stop me out because of his crazy little nephew being around. Well, vive la fucking France, man! Well, holla fucking-luya, man! The Joker's wild! You trying to take me out of the game? And squeeze in your fucking nephew, huh? Well, who's sitting behind your fucking desk now? Me! I'm behind your fucking desk now! Me!
This is about Joe? Oh, God. Eddie, after all we've been through together, come on, man.
Bullshit. Bullshit.
Jesus Christ, you stupid fucking hothead! Come on, what is this? What the hell is going on here?
Huh? I'll
Hey,
show you
Eddie.
a fucking hothead,
Eddie,
man!
put
I'll
the
show
gun
you a
down,
hothead! What about me, asshole?
At number 65, it is the return of Johnny Blaze in Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance, a sequel that is so unforgiving that you kind of wish that the entire series never came out to begin with, considering that the first one was okay. It was very surprising that they would even bother to make a sequel, considering that the first one was $120 million to make and the second one was $75 million. I think once anyone saw that the budget decreased by almost half of what the first one was, they would turn around and not even bother watching this movie. But unfortunately, no one did. I didn't look at anything going into this movie. Heck, all I saw was a trailer, and I thought, the trailer didn't look very impressive. I went to see the movie, and it was just a stink bomb. And when I decided to look up who was involved in this movie, it was just a complete letdown to see how many talented people were behind this movie. It's a shame. It's a shame that, you know, it kind of tarnishes their record, because you have talented actors, talented screenwriters in here, and they are just, you would think that their names are put into the credits and they weren't there to begin with. I mean, you got screenwriters like David S. Goyer, who's involved in Batman Begins, the Dark Knight story. Seth Hoffman, who's behind Flash Forward and Prison Break, one of my favorite TV series, and Scott Gimple from The Walking Dead. And then let's talk about actors. Nicolas Cage, Ciarán Hinds from plays Julius Caesar in Rome, and he's also in Game of Thrones. Idris Elba, who, you know, does fairly well in a lot of movies. In this movie, the acting is atrocious for the most part. It is very bad, and the acting, these talented actors are underused. They're put in this movie with terrible dialogue that makes them look as if they can't act, and it's just not. And it's not the case, because it's just a very weak script with very weak CGI. The worst. I'm gonna go ahead and say that it is the worst CGI I've ever seen in a superhero movie. There's probably been worse movies out there with CGI. If you thought the acting was bad, it's like, okay, maybe some of the action scenes, maybe some CGI will make up for some of this stuff. And it just didn't. It was a complete wreck. The only positive of this movie was probably Johnny Blaze's skull turning on fire, and I guess the villain was somewhat pretty cool, considering that he could rot anything with a simple touch. A villain that could have been placed into any other movie, and maybe Hellboy 3. I mean, that would have been a perfect villain to put in Hellboy 3, which I don't even know if there's gonna be a Hellboy 3, but they might as well have made Hellboy 3. This movie, well, he's put in a movie, he's pretty cool, but who cares? This movie is just not interesting enough to even put a villain like himself into it. There's no point of this villain in the movie at all. This movie offers no character development, and Idris Elba's character and this kid that she's with just get thrown into the movie so randomly that, you know, I'm still trying to figure out why it is that the devil's going after them. And that is why it is number 65 on this list. It's a movie to avoid at all costs, and seriously, don't watch this movie. It is a waste of time to watch it. And number 64 comes a movie that came out in 1990 called Firebirds, starring Tommy Lee Jones and Nicolas Cage. A lot of people have not heard of this movie, but the people who have thought this movie reminded them of Top Gun, which pretty much it is, because it is Top Gun only with helicopters, terrible action sequences, terrible character development, and terrible terrorist. Why this terrorist is so threatening, I don't know. The only thing that this movie says is that he's on an armed chopper. That is it. That's the only reason we're supposed to be scared of this terrorist, and he's the only threat. He's got a chopper. This movie is so ridiculous. They make it seem like it's so hard to kill this terrorist who's flying around on an armed chopper. Big deal. You are the United States. You have the whole entire army. If you really wanted to kill the terrorist, you would have already caught him and you would have killed him. What's a little chopper gonna do? It's only one chopper. All the other ones you can take down in a breeze. And just looking at this terrorist, this is like one of the fattest terrorists I've ever seen in a movie. He doesn't even look like a terrorist. He looks like some taxi cab driver they pulled from New York to be in this movie. And it seems like this entire movie, only 2 guys are actually training for this mission. This so important mission, only 2 people are training for it. All these other guys, look at all these other guys.
Listen up. In less than 24 hours, you'll be asked to use what you've learned here. Our mission is to supply support for a DEA operation of critical importance. Operation Firebird. We launch immediately. We move out tomorrow morning for a staging area in South America. Once we're on the ground down there, you get a full...
We don't see them training. Apparently they're all ready. But 2 guys are training, they're in the simulator, they're always working hard, and gee, this one guy who seems to be so good is one of those guys training. He's so good that he's the only one who needs to be training in this movie. He's so good that we need to be constantly reminded in this movie how good he really is. I mean, what was that Tommy Lee Jones said to him?
I'd marry that thing.
You're good at pilots, they say you are. I'll give away the bride.
I see you took Preston and his gunner up to Zulu.
Oh, yeah, why not?
Had a hell of a score.
He's a hell of a pilot.
Yeah. Didn't really get that. Let's listen to another one.
You fly conventional helicopters beautifully, Preston. Your instincts and reflexes are so damn good you remind me of me 20 years ago.
Okay. Still not quite getting it. Let me listen to that again.
He's good, this kid. You know, he's just a damn good pilot.
He's what now?
I kept thinking, damn, that kid is good. How'd he figure that one out? You're a natural. You're a natural. You got a lot of talent.
Ah, he's good. Oh. Didn't quite get that.
I mean, I'm vain and I know I'm great, but you're definitely the best.
No, you're better.
And At number 63, Nicolas Cage is a lawman looking for a missing girl on a strange island in The Wicker Man. Now this movie, a lot of people love this movie as much as they hate this movie. For me personally, I hated this movie. While a lot of people like this movie because of how horrible it is, how laughable it is, I did not enjoy this movie. There is another movie on this list that is higher on this list that is absolutely terrible, but Nicolas Cage's performance in the movie is amazing. I just love the movie, despite the fact how terrible it is. This movie is just terrible. It's like they told Nicolas Cage, look man, this is Oscar-winning stuff here, better be on your best. And everyone else was just like dead. You know, they didn't even bother trying to act well at all in this movie. And the movie is just so bad. The story is just terrible. This movie kind of reminded me of the 2004 movie called The Village. Adrian Brody, I know, is in that movie. Jessica Chastain is in that movie as well. This is where it takes place in this like Puritan village of some sort. So same thing here. It's kind of like a little village, you know, kind of like a Puritan village. And they do their little rituals. The movie is just such a joke. Seriously, Nicolas Cage is overacting so badly in this movie. Now, there's other movies where he's overacted, but here it's so forced. Like, there's the good Nicolas Cage overacting, and then there's the horrible Nicolas Cage overacting, and this is one of those horrible overacting movies. One of the things I absolutely hated is the woman, his ex-fiancée, Willow. I feel like she is so goddamn annoying. Does she ever finish any of her sentences?
That's not Rowan's grave.
All right.
It isn't. I know that this seems...
Who's that?
I don't know. Whoever's doing this, trying to make... The liars. They can't accept her, or won't. They seem to blame her for all... They're all saying I've lost it. I haven't, Edward. I promise I haven't. She's...
Is hers? Tell me!
Yes, I think it's... Yeah. Where are you going?
Back to her place.
Then I'm coming with you.
No, Willow, I mean it.
But maybe if we...
I'm lost.
I don't know. I ran off once, tried to get away. They think I'm too proud or that I...
No wonder Nicolas Cage was confused as hell.
Look, I'm trying to trust you here, but every time I turn my head, there's something that doesn't make any sense. I'm trying to understand. I am.
Oh,
Well, try, because I'm out there bouncing around in circles, and I can use a little help. I'm lost. Who is she?
She's everything.
So this is where you last saw Ron? Yeah? Can you give me the details? It's important. How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned?
I don't know!
There's not a single soul that could have come into this movie and saved it. No matter how dramatic you can be in this movie, the story is too absurd. There's no way you can be taken seriously. It's so bad you kind of have to watch it. And it is watchable, unlike those other 4 movies I mentioned. So those are the top 5 worst Nicolas Cage movies. Join me on the next couple of episodes to find out where the other 62 movies stack up on this countdown. What is your top 5 worst Nicolas Cage movies? Comment them below. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you next time on Movie Spotlight, Nicolas Cage.